Tonight, we will tell you a story that challenges centuries of perception, a tale not of untouched wilderness, but of vibrant, sophisticated civilizations hidden beneath the dense canopy of the Amazon rainforest. You will discover how ancient cities, once dismissed as myth, are now being revealed by modern science, transforming our understanding of human ingenuity and adaptation. Oh, and if you enjoy these stories, if they bring you a sense of calm and wonder, consider subscribing to the channel. New sleep stories arrive here every day. All right, find a comfortable spot, whether you are in your bed or simply relaxing in a quiet room. Take a deep, slow breath, letting your body sink into the comfort beneath you. For centuries, the Amazon was seen through the eyes of outsiders as an immense, untamed wilderness, a place of raw, untamed nature, where human presence was, at best, fleeting and scattered. Yet, even as they ventured into its depths, whispers began to emerge from the indigenous peoples, tales of grand cities, of golden riches, and of peoples living in numbers that seemed impossible for such a landscape. Tales that were largely dismissed, becoming the stuff of legend like the elusive El Dorado, a golden dream that blinded explorers to the true wonders already there. The Amazon, you see, is not merely a river or a forest. It is a world unto itself, a living, breathing entity of unparalleled scale and mystery, stretching across an entire continent, home to an unimaginable diversity of life. For centuries, its very name has conjured images of an untamed wilderness, a colossal green labyrinth where an eternal humid silence is broken only by the chirping of insects and the calls of unseen creatures. It was perceived as a place where nature reigned supreme, where human presence seems fleeting, almost insignificant, swallowed by the relentless verdant growth. When the first European explorers, driven by tales of gold and new lands, ventured into its depths, they encountered a landscape utterly alien to their experience, a world unlike anything they had ever known. They saw an impenetrable expanse of towering trees, some reaching dizzying heights, their crowns forming an unbroken emerald ceiling. They navigated winding, often treacherous waterways, shadowed by dense foliage, and felt the oppressive, humid air that clung to everything. To them, this was a primordial realm, a raw, untamed frontier, untouched by the grand civilizations they knew from their own history books. No towering stone cities like the ones of ancient Greece or Rome, no vast agricultural fields neatly arranged in geometric patterns, no bustling metropolises with paved roads and grand public squares to rival London or Paris. Their understanding of civilization was rooted in the visible monuments of stone and open landscapes, making it difficult for them to conceive of a different kind of grandeur hidden within the dense, seemingly chaotic embrace of the jungle. Their perception, shaped by their own cultural lens and limited by the challenges of exploration, was that of a pristine wilderness, a place perhaps inhabited by scattered nomadic tribes, but certainly not by complex societies capable of large-scale engineering or urban planning. They believed the sheer force of the jungle, its relentless growth, the rapid decay of organic materials, and its apparent lack of universally fertile soil, made such ambitious human endeavors impossible. This idea that the Amazon was always and forever a wild, undeveloped frontier became deeply ingrained in the Western imagination. It was seen as a place where humanity could only exist on the fringes, subservient to the overwhelming power of nature, a place that had largely bypassed the grand arcs of human history, remaining stubbornly outside the story of civilization's rise and fall. This narrative persisted for generations, echoed in countless adventure stories and scientific treatises, painting a picture of an Amazon that was a beautiful but essentially empty canvas. Yet, as you will discover, this widely accepted view was, in fact, a profound misinterpretation, a shadow cast by limited understanding and the sheer scale of the jungle itself. The Amazon, far from being an untouched wilderness, was a landscape profoundly shaped by human hands, a tapestry woven with the ingenious interventions of peoples who understood its rhythms and mastered its challenges in ways we are only just beginning to fully comprehend. Beneath the seemingly chaotic growth, hidden by centuries of verdant embrace, lay the silent, overgrown remnants of a past far more complex, far more populated, and far more technologically advanced than anyone in the outside world had ever dared to imagine. These were not just small villages or temporary camps. These were vast, interconnected settlements, some of which could be described as true cities, supporting populations in the tens of thousands, thriving for centuries before the arrival of European ships. The dense, suffocating embrace of the rainforest, which once led explorers to conclude that nothing significant could survive its relentless growth, was, in fact, the very cloak that preserved these ancient secrets. The same natural processes that quickly reclaimed abandoned structures, such as the rapid decomposition of wood and the swift overgrowth of vegetation, also protected them from the ravages of time and the destructive curiosity of later generations. The roots of mighty trees intertwined with ancient foundations, layers of decaying leaves and rich, dark soil, slowly buried plazas, intricate earthworks, and pathways, effectively sealing away entire urban landscapes. This natural burial process, while making discovery incredibly challenging, also ensured that when these sites were finally glimpsed, they offered a remarkably intact window into the lives of the people who built them, a snapshot preserved in the heart of the jungle. Our journey into these forgotten worlds begins with challenging that initial European perception, peeling back the layers of misconception to reveal a vibrant and dynamic past. We will travel through time, guided by the whispers of archaeology and the echoes of ancient ingenuity, to uncover the true face of the Amazon, not as a pristine void, but as a cradle of remarkable human achievement. You will learn of sophisticated agricultural techniques that transformed infertile soils into productive farmlands, allowing for the sustenance of large populations. You will discover intricate social structures, complex belief systems, and artistic expressions that rivaled those of contemporary civilizations elsewhere in the world. This story is a testament to the enduring power of human adaptation and creativity, a reminder that even in the most challenging environments, people have always found ways to build, to connect, and to thrive. Now, as we delve deeper, prepare to abandon preconceived notions about what a civilization must look like or where it must arise. The Amazonian cities were not always defined by towering stone monuments or vast open plains like those of the Old World. Instead, their grandeur lay in their harmonious integration with the environment, their mastery of water management, their intricate earthworks, and their ability to sustain complex societies within the very heart of the rainforest. This narrative will unfold chronologically, revealing how these cultures rose, how they adapted, and ultimately, what led to their decline, leaving behind only tantalizing clues for modern researchers to piece together. It is a story of resilience, innovation, and ultimately, a tragic loss, but also a story of profound rediscovery as the jungle slowly, reluctantly, begins to yield its long-held secrets. So, settle in and let your imagination drift to a time when the Amazon was not just a wilderness, but a vibrant living testament to human ingenuity, a place where forgotten cities once thrived under a canopy of green. As the first European explorers ventured deeper into the emerald labyrinth of the Amazon, pushing past the coastal settlements and into the vastness of the basin, they carried with them a specific lens through which they viewed the world. They were driven by a thirst for new lands, new resources, and above all, gold. This quest for riches often overshadowed any genuine curiosity about the complex societies they encountered or the intricate relationship the indigenous peoples had with their environment. These early encounters were often fraught with misunderstanding and conflict, but sometimes, through interpreters or gestures, information was exchanged. The indigenous inhabitants, living in harmony with the rhythm of the rivers and the dense forest, often spoke of their ancestors, of powerful chieftains, and of lands beyond the immediate horizon where great settlements thrived. They described communities with vast populations, intricate social structures, and an abundance of precious metals, particularly gold. They spoke of cities not unlike those the Europeans knew, but adapted to the unique environment of the rainforest, built with ingenious earthworks and sophisticated agricultural systems rather than stone. These were not vague whispers. These were consistent narratives passed down through generations, stories of a vibrant past that still resonated in the present. For the Europeans, these tales ignited a fervent hope, a dazzling promise that fueled their relentless expeditions. These indigenous accounts, rich with detail and often embellished in translation, quickly coalesced into one pervasive legend, El Dorado. This was not initially a city, but rather a ritual performed by a Muisca chieftain in the highlands of present-day Colombia, who would cover himself in gold dust and submerge himself in a sacred lake as an offering. However, as the legend traveled downriver and spread through the Amazonian lowlands, it transformed. The ritual became a king, the king became a city, and the city became a kingdom, all made of pure gold, hidden deep within the impenetrable jungle. Explorers like Francisco de Orellana, who famously navigated the Amazon River in the mid-16th century, heard these tales firsthand and meticulously documented them, believing they were on the cusp of discovering unimaginable wealth. He spoke of large towns, fortified villages, and evidence of a populous and organized society along the riverbanks, describing scenes that defied the later European notion of a sparsely inhabited wilderness. Yet, despite these initial reports from Orellana and others, which clearly indicated the presence of sophisticated Amazonian societies, the prevailing European mindset began to dismiss them. As subsequent expeditions, often ill-equipped and suffering from disease, failed to find the glittering cities of El Dorado, the narrative shifted dramatically. The grand tales of indigenous populations were increasingly regarded as mere myths, exaggerations, or even deliberate deceptions. The Amazon itself, with its overwhelming density and apparent lack of visible large-scale stone architecture, like the Inca cities in the Andes, contributed significantly to this dismissal. European scholars and chroniclers, accustomed to defining civilization by monumental stone structures and visible urban centers, found little in the Amazon that fit their preconceived notions. They concluded that the environment was too harsh, too resource-poor, and too challenging to sustain anything beyond small nomadic groups. They believed that any large-scale settlements would inevitably leave clear, enduring traces, and since they didn't immediately see them, they assumed they didn't exist. This assumption became deeply entrenched. This Eurocentric perspective, deeply rooted in the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, fundamentally shaped the perception of the Amazon. It reinforced the idea of a virgin forest, a wild and untamed space untouched by significant human intervention. The indigenous peoples were often seen as primitive, living simple lives in a pristine wilderness, incapable of the complex social organization and technological innovation required to build and sustain large urban centers. The narratives of ancient Amazonian civilizations faded into obscurity, relegated to the realm of folklore and fantasy, a convenient simplification that allowed European powers to justify their claims over the land and its resources without acknowledging a rich and complex human history that predated their arrival. The focus remained squarely on exploiting the natural wealth of the region, timber, rubber, minerals, rather than understanding or respecting its profound cultural heritage. The idea of a vast interconnected Amazonian past brimming with thriving cities and advanced agricultural practices was simply too far outside the established Western worldview to be seriously considered, and so the jungle was deemed empty, its true history effectively erased from the dominant global narrative for centuries. This persistent misconception would endure, shaping scientific inquiry and public imagination for generations, until new evidence, buried deep beneath the canopy, began to challenge these deeply ingrained assumptions, slowly bringing the forgotten past back into the light. The journey to truly understand the Amazon's ancient secrets was only just beginning, a slow uncovering of what had been dismissed as mere legend. The whispers of gold had led to blindness to the true richness of human ingenuity. Yet, the jungle held secrets far deeper than these early explorers understood, secrets hidden beneath long centuries of dense growth and a dismissive historical narrative. The perception of the Amazon as an empty wilderness, a vast, untamed expanse untouched by significant human civilization, began to crumble only in the latter half of the 20th century. This profound shift in understanding was not sudden. It was a slow, painstaking process, driven by dedicated archaeological work, the patient re-examination of forgotten historical accounts, and a growing willingness to listen to the oral traditions of indigenous peoples who had always known the truth of their ancestors' achievements. For generations, the prevailing scientific view, largely shaped by European biases and a limited understanding of tropical ecosystems, held that the Amazon's challenging environment, its poor soils, relentless humidity, dense vegetation, and annual floods, made it fundamentally impossible for large, complex societies to thrive. It was widely believed that only small, nomadic hunter-gatherer groups, constantly moving in search of fleeting resources, could survive within such a formidable landscape. This theory, often termed environmental determinism, posited that the environment dictated the limits of human development, reinforcing the idea that the region was a pristine, largely unaltered wilderness before the arrival of European ships. This narrative, convenient for justifying colonial expansion and perceiving indigenous peoples as primitive, dominated archaeological and historical thought for too long. However, as new scientific methods emerged, as carbon dating became more precise, and as a more nuanced understanding of human ingenuity and adaptation developed, this long-held, deeply ingrained belief system began to fracture, revealing a more intricate and dynamic past. Archaeologists, no longer solely focused on monumental stone cities like those in the Andes or Mesoamerica, started to look for different kinds of evidence, adapting their techniques to the unique challenges of the rainforest. They began to uncover compelling proof that directly contradicted the empty wilderness narrative. They found not just scattered villages, but the substantial remnants of extensive, sophisticated pre-Columbian societies. These were complex civilizations that had mastered their environment, transforming it to suit their needs, demonstrating astonishing ecological knowledge and engineering prowess. Their innovations in agriculture were particularly remarkable and served as a cornerstone for supporting large populations. One of the most significant discoveries was terra preta, or Amazonian dark earth. This incredibly fertile, dark, and highly stable soil, found in distinct patches, often meters deep and spanning many hectares across the basin, was definitively proven not to be a natural formation. It was a deliberate human creation, engineered over centuries by enriching ordinary soils with charcoal, pottery shards, and organic wastes. The presence and careful maintenance of terra preta pointed unequivocally to settled populations who actively managed their land for long-term productivity. This allowed them to cultivate crops year after year in the same locations, supporting far larger, denser, and more permanent communities than had ever been imagined possible in the rainforest. Imagine the constant work, the daily accumulation of organic matter, the careful layering that slowly built up these rich, dark pockets of life-giving earth, contrasting sharply with the often pale, leached soils around them. Beyond terra preta, evidence of other advanced agricultural practices emerged, painting a picture of diverse food production. In seasonally flooded savannas, for instance, archaeologists discovered intricate systems of raised fields. These raised platforms allowed ancient farmers to cultivate crops year-round, protecting them from the annual inundations while simultaneously creating canals and drainage systems that could also be used for aquaculture. This was not haphazard farming. It was a carefully planned strategy to harness the natural cycles. They also practiced sophisticated forest management, a subtle yet profound form of agriculture. They cultivated vast forest gardens or domesticated forests, carefully managing and enhancing stands of trees to favor species providing food, medicine, and building materials such as Brazil nuts, cacao, and various palms. These were not wild, untouched jungles as Europeans had perceived them, but rather meticulously shaped and managed landscapes, bearing the subtle but undeniable fingerprints of human intervention over millennia. The sheer scale and organizational complexity of these societies also became increasingly apparent. researchers began to find evidence of large interconnected settlements, often with urban characteristics, not just isolated hamlets. These settlements were frequently organized with clear urban planning principles, featuring large central plazas, ceremonial centers, and radial road networks connecting them efficiently to smaller satellite villages and distant resource areas. This intricate web of settlements and infrastructure strongly suggested complex social structures, including hierarchies, specialized labor, and organized governance that could coordinate massive earthworks and manage large populations. It indicated that these were highly organized, stratified societies capable of monumental projects and vibrant cultural lives. The unearthing of these ancient architects fundamentally reshaped our understanding of the Amazon's past. It revealed that before the impact of European diseases, the Amazon was a vibrant tapestry of diverse, densely populated cultures, each with unique adaptations, sophisticated technologies, and remarkable achievements. It challenged the romanticized, inaccurate notion of a pristine wilderness, painting a vivid picture of a landscape deeply shaped by human ingenuity over thousands of years. This paradigm shift was crucial. It corrected a long-standing misconception and set the stage for more astonishing discoveries, redefining the Amazon's forgotten history piece by painstaking piece from its rich, dark earth. One of the earliest and most striking examples of these hidden Amazonian civilizations, challenging all prior assumptions, emerged from Marajoara Island, a truly vast landmass nestled directly at the very mouth of the mighty Amazon River itself, where fresh and salt water meet. This immense island, larger than many European countries combined, is a place of profound geographical contrasts, dominated by expansive floodplains where the river's titanic ebb and flow dictate every aspect of life. Here, in this dynamic and often challenging environment, a remarkable culture known as the Marajoara flourished with astonishing resilience and creativity for over 1,000 years, from approximately 400 CE to 1600 CE. Their very existence, when finally understood, utterly redefined what scholars and explorers had for so long believed possible in this verdant, watery region. The Marajoara people were truly master potters, and their ceramic artistry is perhaps their most visually stunning and enduring legacy. Imagine, if you will, the tactile sensation of the clay, sourced from the rich riverbanks, carefully shaped and then adorned with intricate details and vibrant earthy colors, deep reds, stark blacks, and creamy whites, creating striking polychrome designs. These were not merely simple, functional vessels for everyday use. Many served profound ritualistic and ceremonial purposes. You can almost feel the weight of their elaborate funerary urns, designed with immense care to hold the cremated remains of their revered ancestors. These urns were often shaped like stylized human figures with expressive faces and intricate body paint designs, or powerful animals imbued with deep spiritual significance and connection to the spirit world. The precision, the balance, and the sheer beauty of their craftsmanship suggest a society with highly specialized artisans, where skill was not only valued, but meticulously developed and passed down through many generations, a testament to a stable and flourishing culture. Beyond their exquisite pottery, the Marajoara were prodigious and visionary earth movers. They constructed vast artificial mounds known locally as tesos, which served multiple critical purposes. These elevated platforms provided essential, stable ground for their extensive settlements, protecting homes, communal structures, and entire communities from the relentless and often devastating seasonal flooding that inundates much of Marajoara Island for months on end. But these mounds were far more than just practical engineering feats. Many also functioned as prominent ceremonial centers, serving as elevated stages for public gatherings, elaborate rituals, and as sacred burial sites for their most important individuals. Some of these tesos are truly monumental in scale, rising many meters, sometimes up to 20, above the surrounding plain and covering vast acres of land. Their construction would have required immense communal effort, sophisticated planning, and highly organized labor, pointing unmistakably to a complex, centralized society capable of coordinating large populations for ambitious, long-term projects. The very landscape of Marajoara Island, therefore, was not natural, but a carefully engineered living space. Archaeological excavations within and around these impressive earthworks have provided the invaluable insights into a thriving, hierarchical society. The striking differences in the quantity and quality of burial goods found interred with individuals within the mounds, for example, clearly indicate distinct social stratification. Some individuals were laid to rest with rich collections of their most elaborate pottery, intricate ornaments, and other precious items, signaling their high status and influence. In contrast, others had much simpler burials, suggesting a clear distinction between elites and commoners. This visible stratification, combined with the sheer scale and complexity of their public works, strongly suggests a complex political structure, likely organized into powerful chiefdoms that control different territories and resource zones across the expansive island. The social fabric was tightly woven, with clear roles and responsibilities. The Marajoara people demonstrated an extraordinary capacity for adaptation to their unique and challenging environment. They developed sophisticated agricultural practices, cultivating staple crops like manioc, which formed the bedrock of their diet, through techniques that allowed them to thrive even with seasonal inundations. They also skillfully managed the rich aquatic resources of the floodplains, relying heavily on systematic fishing and hunting of the abundant wildlife. Their settlements were strategically located to maximize access to these diverse resources, often interconnected by networks of raised pathways and possibly even a system of canals, allowing for efficient movement, communication, and trade across the often waterlogged landscape. The remarkable longevity of their cultural flourishing, spanning over 12 centuries, is a powerful testament to the sustainability, ingenuity, and inherent resilience of their way of life in a region once thought to be incapable of supporting such complex societies. The profound discovery and meticulous study of the Marajoara culture were absolutely pivotal in fundamentally altering Western perceptions of the Amazon. It conclusively demonstrated that indigenous peoples in this vast and seemingly untamed region were not simply transient, nomadic hunter-gatherers living at the mercy of nature. Instead, they were capable of developing large-scale sedentary societies with advanced social organization, monumental architecture that reshaped the very land, and sophisticated artistic traditions that rivaled those found anywhere else in the ancient world. Their story, etched into the very soil of Marajoara Island, is a powerful and compelling testament to human ingenuity, cultural complexity, and remarkable adaptation. It provides undeniable proof that the Amazon, far from being an untouched wilderness, was in fact a vibrant, dynamic landscape profoundly shaped, managed, and inhabited by complex civilizations long before the arrival of any European ships. This groundbreaking understanding laid the crucial groundwork for further, even more astounding, archaeological discoveries across the Amazon basin, revealing that Marajoara Island was merely one fascinating piece of a much larger and, until recently, entirely forgotten mosaic of Amazonian history and human achievement. The Marajoara were a complex, hierarchical civilization that flourished for over 1,000 years on Marajoara Island, known for their sophisticated pottery and monumental earthworks. Their existence fundamentally challenged prior assumptions about Amazonian peoples, proving that advanced sedentary societies thrived in the region long before European contact. Yet, Marajoara was not an isolated marvel, a singular exception in a vast, untamed wilderness. Far to the southwest, nestled within the sprawling lowlands of what is now Bolivia, another remarkable civilization was quietly shaping its world, demonstrating an equally profound and intricate mastery over its environment. This was the Casarabe culture, a society whose extraordinary achievements remained hidden beneath the dense jungle canopy for centuries, only to be brought to light relatively recently through the piercing, unseen gaze of modern remote sensing technology, specifically LiDAR. Imagine, if you will, a landscape defined not by a chaotic, untamed wilderness, but by human ingenuity, a place where water, the very lifeblood of the Amazon, was not merely a formidable force to contend with, but a resource to be meticulously harnessed, controlled, and integrated into the very fabric of daily life and urban planning, showcasing an understanding of hydrology that rivals many later societies. The Casarabe people, flourishing between approximately 500 and 1400 CE, were true hydrological engineers, artists of the earth and water. Their most striking and enduring legacy is an intricate, sprawling network of earthworks that fundamentally reshaped the very contours of the savanna landscape, transforming it into a highly productive and habitable zone. These were not simple ditches or crude channels. They were monumental constructions, meticulously planned and executed on a scale that continues to astound researchers, especially when considering the widespread historical dismissal of Amazonian societies as primitive or nomadic. You would have seen, had you been able to observe this ancient landscape from above, a vast and interconnected tapestry woven from straight, elevated causeways, stretching for miles, sometimes for dozens of kilometers, across the flat plains. These weren't just informal paths. They were expertly engineered roads, some reaching up to 10 meters wide, providing vital arteries for transport and communication, connecting dispersed settlements, and allowing for efficient movement of people and goods, even during the peak of the wet season, when much of the surrounding land transformed into a shallow inland sea. The surface of these causeways would have been firm beneath your feet, offering a secure passage above the damp earth, a testament to the immense collective labor involved in their construction. Alongside these raised pathways ran an equally impressive and vital system of canals. These waterways served multiple critical functions, demonstrating a deep understanding of the region's unique hydrological cycles. During the torrential rainy season, they acted as sophisticated drainage systems, efficiently channeling excess water away from agricultural fields and protecting their precious settlements from widespread inundation. The steady sound of rushing water filling these channels would have been a constant backdrop to their lives, a rhythm of existence tied to the flow. But their brilliance truly shone during the long, parched, dry season. The canals were ingeniously designed to capture and store precious rainwater, feeding it into a series of strategically located reservoirs. These large artificial lakes, some covering several hectares, ensured a consistent and reliable supply of fresh water for drinking, sanitation, and, crucially, for the extensive irrigation of their crops. This guaranteed water supply allowed for a surplus of food, supporting a denser and more sedentary population. Furthermore, these canals were likely used for aquaculture, providing a steady source of fish, a vital protein in their diet, adding another layer of sustainability and resilience to their system. The careful management of this watery world allowed the Casarabe to thrive where others might have struggled, creating an enduring civilization. The very notion of large, permanent urban settlements in the Amazon was once considered an impossibility by many scholars. Yet the Casarabe built them, not just isolated villages, but interconnected towns. Their urban centers were not merely situated within this watery world. They were carefully and deliberately integrated into its design. Each major settlement, circular or rectangular, raised platforms of earth. These elevated areas, sometimes dozens of hectares in as the surrounding landscape, periodically flooded with seasonal rains. At the heart of these primary settlements, the scale of these earthworks, the vastness of the canal networks, and the evident population density suggest a substantial, creating a landscape that was both productive and resilient. They cultivated a diverse range of thriving communities. The discovery and ongoing study of the Casarabe culture have profoundly reshaped loss. Yet, for all their ingenuity, for all the intricate planning seen in places like Kuhikugu, it swept through the vast river basin, bringing an end to centuries of development and prosperity. Common cold, diseases against which Europeans had developed some degree of immunity over centuries, were utterly